Why German soldiers don't have to obey orders. Military disobedience is instilled into the German armed forces. The reasons for it can be found in the country's sinister past. American military law states that an order can only be disobeyed if it is unlawful. However, the German military manual is different. It states that a military order is not binding if it is not of any use for service. It can also be ignored if it cannot reasonably be executed. If it denies human dignity to the soldier or the target, it must not be obeyed. This allows German soldiers to ignore their orders. This applies even in combat and to orders from high-ranking officials. But it wasn't always this way. Unconditional obedience was a norm in Germany, even before it became a state in 1871. During World War I, Germany executed 48 soldiers for insubordination. Its basic training regimen was designed around unconditional submission. It was one of Europe's most brutal. After World War I, this discipline softened, thanks to the Allied forces. They blamed the country's strict military hierarchy for the ruthlessness of the war. Under the Treaty of Versailles, Germany was forced to take the blame for the war. The country's military was effectively dismantled. Its officer schools were closed. The number of troops was reduced to just 100,000. However, Germany had no intention of following the treaty's provisions. Soon after, German General Hans von Seeckt began reorganizing the military. German companies secretly started producing banned arms on Russian soil. German troops trained with Soviet soldiers. Adolf Hitler came into power in 1933. He promised to revive the country's former might. He immediately began to openly flout the treaty. From 1934 on, the German military oath was sworn to Hitler himself. It contained a clause that promised unconditional obedience. That rule was taken seriously. Before and during World War II, at least 15,000 German soldiers were executed for desertion. Up to 50,000 were killed for often minor acts of insubordination. When the war ended, the Allies dismantled Germany's military. Only in 1955 were new armed forces created. The new armed forces were different from their predecessors. German law states the military must only defend Germany itself. Instead of blind obedience, the military emphasizes interfering. This concept centers on the inner conscience of each individual. As a result, many German soldiers refuse combat assignments or disobey orders. In 2007, the German government made an unusual statement. It said that unconditional authority or loyalty to superiors can't exist under the law. Soldiers must carry out an obedience which is thinking. That concept is most apparent at the Bendler Block building in Berlin. This is where Hitler's would-be assassins were executed in 1944. Today, the building is a museum to German resistance. Every year, new German soldiers are traditionally sworn here to their duties. The soldiers give oaths to defend Germany in a place of military resistance. Germany's brutal legacy explains its unwillingness to force its soldiers to obey orders.